Welcome to Heartspeak Podcast, episode 297, Intuitive Listening. Well, hello there, wherever you're in the world. It's good to be back with you. And welcome to this new moon in Gemini. Sun, Moon, Venus, all together. Now, what do we know about Gemini? Well, take it from someone who has 5 planets in Gemini. We do like to talk. We do love to learn. We do love to share. We are the pollinators of this world. We take information from one place and move it somewhere else. And so if today we have this new moon in Gemini, this is a great time to share information, to maybe join a group, to start a new course, to perhaps keep a journal when you hadn't before. Great time to get in touch with friends. Of course, it's not necessarily about just telling them something. What we as Geminis like is to learn. Tell me about it. I'm interested. I'm curious. We really don't have a dog in the fight about this has to be the way it is. It's much more about bringing information together. And I often use that phrase of help me to understand, help me to hear what you're saying, because I'm interested. And so this is a great time for opening our minds and being aware of what's really being said, which is that more intuitive side of us. Now, Venus being with this new moon, it might be also a time of popping the question. Venus is very romantic. Maybe you need to tell someone how much you love them. That will be another part of this Venus new moon. But today I particularly want to focus on that more intuitive side of us. And several years ago, I had a computerized reading of my astrology. And I just thought it'd be interesting to see what the computer says. Now, I had just published my book on intuition, Beyond the Obvious. And as I got the report back, I had to laugh because the first thing it said is, with all those planets in Gemini, you will never be intuitive. You're far too left brain. You're going to be caught up in intellect. You must be careful because that's really going to bring you down and keep you very locked into one way of thinking. Well, that wasn't the truth for me. And I went back to having readings with real people, which seemed to be much more appropriate to me. Now, there is a part of the Gemini that loves different types of information. We are a little bit like magpies. We pick up information as we go around. Also like bees, I can give us a lot of different analogies. We take pollen from one place to another place. And so we can be jack of all trades and master of none, having a lot of superficial knowledge, but not necessarily anything deep. Now, I would like to say I prize myself in enjoying going deep. Part of that, I think, is because of my moon being in Aquarius enjoying going deep, synthesizing information, bringing information in from different places. And so there are different qualities of these air signs. One of them is Gemini, which just likes information. Aquarius likes to collate information. And in the middle of that, just to say, we have Libra that likes information because that makes better relationships. So often you'll find that if you have Libra in your chart, you'll pick up information so you can make relationships or make them more understandable, etc., etc. It's a way of mediating between the two, having some information. But if we return to the Gemini, we see here this ability to move information around, say, be the pollinator. And I think at this time that's happening. My goodness, there is so much information out there. And I would say we are not lacking information. We're lacking our ability to be selective about what information we take into our world. And that's particularly true at this new moon, where we have Saturn squaring the new moon. Saturn, as you know, being in Pisces. And that Pisces is the ability to take us off in all directions, you could say, the unlimitedness. But Saturn is saying, focus your attention. And I think this is more important than ever to focus attention, my friends. So much is going on out there, so much information, but recognize that the information that I may say we're being fed may be one that is not necessarily taking us to the depth of what is really going on. And I really felt that was relevant over these last few days, where we've had the big WHO meeting. We've got so-called peace talks going on in the Middle East. We've got other issues going on in Ukraine and Russia. There's a lot going on. And of course, we're privy to information, but again, it would be dependent on who we listen to and what knowledge do they have on this subject. Now, I'm not going to create an opinion on any of that, but I would say go deep, because at this same time that we have this new moon, we also have Jupiter in Gemini. So Jupiter in Gemini, again, enthusiasm, expansion of knowledge. Wow, look how much knowledge is out there. So, there are so many places we can go to listen. But with Pluto there, even though it's a trine, Pluto is about depth. It's about going inwardly to hear the answers. And so, as I say, a trine is usually good feelings. So it's like Jupiter trining Pluto might be something, wow, this is exciting, we're really going deep. But I think Pluto is so opposite in many ways to Gemini. Gemini wants to fly. Pluto wants to dig deep, go into the seas. So it's a little bit like having Scorpio and Gemini in your chart. Gemini says, hey, I don't want to go deep into emotions. And Scorpio says, yeah, let's go deeper into emotions. So they're not good bedfellows. And so I feel at this time, there's a part of us that wants to only see the things that are joyful and light and happy, and I'm all for that. But I'd also be aware that, as I've heard people say, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And Jupiter wants everything to be the sprint. Let's get it over and done with. When are we finished? And Pluto is saying, no, it's going to work out, but not the way you think, and certainly not because we are, if I may say, skipping across the top of what's really going on. So it does require us to listen within, and that's why I use this statement, this title of intuitive listening. So both Saturn being square to the new moon and Pluto being there in trine to Jupiter, they're both saying, stop, listen, go within, focus. What is being said? Where are we being blindsided by this Jupiterian desire to just, let's move on, let's all love each other? And I'm all for loving each other, but it's important for us to understand that there are depths of change that need to happen, processes that need to happen at a very deep level before we can have that level of love, unity, and peace that we all desire. And those things are happening. But there's also a piece of us that's holding on to old patterns. And those old patterns are going to weigh us down if we're not careful. And one of the reasons I'm saying that is because Mars has just gone into Taurus. So Mars is about passion, Taurus about land and money and all those things in the body, the three things I keep coming up to with Uranus, but Mars has just gone into Taurus. So I think what's being exacerbated is a stubbornness, a determination to hold on to those things, to hold on to what we know. And there are those who want it to be about something else, how much they care for other people. But ultimately, we are still working with those who seek power through possessions, through land, through oil, through minerals, through food, through money. It doesn't matter what it is. It's what is still needing to be possessed. And this is a very, very ancient story, my friends. The desire to possess, the desire to own has been going on, I would say, for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands perhaps. And this is what we are breaking free of. Now, it doesn't again mean you can't have those things in your life, but it's the desire to possess over the desire to help other people or to be in harmony with our environment is where we've gone out of balance. And I'm going to speak about that more next week. But humanity has to learn that we don't actually possess anything. We are guests on this planet, that we are given this beautiful body to take care of as not just a guardian of it, but as a guest of this beautiful body. We have money to enjoy, but we don't need to hold on to it. We have to enjoy the food, but again, the food will come as we release. And this may be a time in your life where you're having to release aspects of your own life, the way you thought things would be. Maybe your beliefs are being changed. Maybe the structure of your home, your financial security is changing. So all of the, maybe your body is changing and you're having to let go of what you thought your body would be like and accepting how it is. So this time is about learning to let go and trust that more is coming when we let go. But we're also going to see the holding on happening in the bigger picture, in the world. And I just want to say is that when you listen intuitively, you'll hear that the messages that are being put out are trying to fan the beliefs of the populace rather than the truth of what's going on. So please listen within. Listen to what is really being said. What is the power grab that's taking place? I know I've said this before, but it's not going away. We may not be on that circuit at all. That may not never have been our thought. But believe me, it is certain people's thought to hold on, to possess. And so rather than being naive and saying it's not happening, keep going forward in our own journeys, in whatever else we're doing, but be aware that rather than getting caught up in the language of excitement and wow, everything's changing, recognize again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Deep changes have to take place before we are going to see that beauty, that light, that abundance for all, that peace that we all want. And one other, the wolf planet that Pam Gregory talks about a lot, that has just entered Gemini, is Sedna. Sedna is going to be around for, I think, another 60 odd years in Gemini. So we've got a long time to work with this. But this dwarf planet was named after an Inuit princess, goddess, lady. And the story goes, then there are many versions of it, that she was either meant to marry a certain person that her father wanted her to marry, or she married someone and then they turned out not to be what they thought they were going to be, or her father was just fed up with her. There are various versions. But in all the versions, she's in this boat with her father, probably the worst thing she did. And she is trying to get away, and he throws her into the water, and she is gripping onto the side of the boat to get back in the boat again, and he chops off her fingers. Not a very nice father. And the story goes that she then drops down into the oceans and becomes the mistress of the seas, and her fingers become all the different creatures within the ocean, including the seals and the whales and the walruses and any other animals of that type, the dolphins. And I think the story, of course, is rather a sad story that your father chops off your fingers. But I think the story is really about not holding on. And that's why I wanted to bring it up along this same idea of the Mars Taurus, the Uranus Taurus, this idea of what are we holding on to? What story are we holding on to? Where do we keep trying to climb back into the boat and then get thrown overboard again? So this is about letting go. And if we are going to look at the father as the patriarch, I think this is also letting go of the patriarchal beliefs, this is also a story of saying, it's not saying don't trust anybody, but saying, I can't hold on to this belief anymore because it's killing me. I have to let go. I have to trust the ocean. And so when we look at the ocean, we come to the ocean of possibilities. We look at the great mystical unknown. And most creation myths have the story that in the beginning is the darkness, the ocean, the waters, and then the light passes across the waters. So I feel that this is a time really of letting go. And I know I'm coming back to Neptune in Pisces, but this is about letting go and dissolving ourselves back into the oceans in order to evolve. So it isn't about gathering more information, as one might think with Gemini. It's actually only holding on to that information that's going to allow you to know how to let go, how to free yourself. Because everything I learn, and I do learn because I'm a Gemini, it's all about dissolving away. It's not about trying to do the same thing with the same ways of being and hoping there's going to be change. And this is about our own personal journey. Each of us will let go of different things. And it isn't about becoming alone, it's becoming more of. And so as I bring this together, I want to say that if we go back to the idea that Gemini is an air sign, along with Libra, as I say, for relationships, and Aquarius, because it enjoys synthesizing information. This is a really good time to listen to the different aspects of the nature kingdoms that are connected to air. Because you see, air is the communicator. It is that which brings into form information into form. And so here we have air as being expressed often by its movement, don't we? We don't always see air. We see how the trees rustle, or we see the birds, or we see the insects. So this is a great time to intuitively to connect to trees, to connect to the birds, to connect to insects, anything that flies, even dolphins if you want, because they can fly through the air. And so you may be interested in looking at something like the Bach flower remedies. I'm a great believer in those. This is how Edward Bach, the doctor, went into the woods or the forest and knew that if he took on the energy of a certain emotion, there would always be a tree in these English forests that would be able to heal him. This is a resonance, a signature of his need for healing. So the beauty of this was that he then wrote these, I think, 38 different remedies, and each of them is made in a homeopathic way to bring us relief to a problem. But you don't necessarily even have to take the remedies. You can go out into your own surroundings, find trees, find a place you love going where there are trees, and listen to the trees. Now, you don't have to sit down and say, hello, tree, what have you got to say to me? Look at the tree. Is it in bloom? Is it wearing itself out? Is it needing to be cut back? What is going on in your trees? And I like to tell a story of being up in Findhorn that some of you may know about, the way up there where amazing connections to the nature spirits. And on my first visit, I was working in the garden, and this gardener said, we keep having to cut back these bushes because they're really trees, but we want them to be a bush. We want them to be a hedge. So we keep cutting back these trees, making them become a hedge. And I realized that was me. I kept being cut down to become aligned to everybody else, what they call the tall poppy syndrome, keeping my head down so I wouldn't look out of place in the hedge. But then I became a tree and stuck my head up and said, I'm ready to go. So what are the trees around you telling you? Just spend some time. Now, if you want to go into the Bach flower remedies, there are things like oak that help you to become strong when you're not feeling so strong as you used to be. Or aspen. If you've ever been around aspens, they quiver. What are the quivering telling you? Aspen is very good when you're anxious. Taking it helps you to be less anxious. Or walnut, which is great when you're making changes in your life. So you can go online and find all this list. Or you can listen to the birds, listen to their songs. You may not understand them, and that's fine, but what are they saying to you? Let the song move your heart. And different birds have different meaning. I don't know about you, but we have hummingbirds around here. And every time I need to remind myself to have fun and joy, there's the hummingbird in my face. Or the hawk that's being the messenger. Or the cardinal. Here, a bird here we have in the US is usually connected to someone from the spirit world, bringing a message to you. Or a robin, or a dragonfly. Where have you given away your power? Where are you needing to take back the energy of the dragon and fly again? So all around us are these wonderful messages, really connected to the element of air. And when we are listening, we can also listen to the very deep sounds. And they're the sounds that I've discussed before, the whale sounds, a wonderful way of really returning to ourselves. Just to have a recording playing about a whale with whale sounds is so beautiful. Or the dolphin with very high pitch. Again, we may not understand what they're saying, but often the dolphins will share acoustic images with us. We may just get an image, might be listening to a recording of a dolphin and suddenly realize, wow, I'm seeing something in my mind. So all of these animals, trees, insects are trying to help us to raise our consciousness, to raise our awareness, to listen within, to listen to our bodies, another way of listening to what are the messages within. What's the body trying to say to us intuitively? And once we bring all that together, we can hear our higher self much clearer. We can hear the universe speak to our heart. So I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. Let it be a joyous time. Let it be a time of new discoveries, new understandings. But be aware of, what do I need to focus on? And where am I trying to skip over the top of what's really going on? And how do I listen to that very deep level of how to progress through the energies that are darker, perhaps more difficult to hear through our intuition, but know that we are going to come through into the light, and there will be abundance, peace, and love for all. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the HeartSpeak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Please check out all HeartSpeak episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. HeartSpeak is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Tumblr, and now playing on Amazon Music and iHeart Radio. You can also watch the archive podcast on Christine's channel, on YouTube, and now on Rumble. Connect with Christine on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook group, The Great Mother Calling. Do share with family, friends, colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of HeartSpeak.